The husband thought his wife was cheating, so he decided to crash her work party to find out. My name is Jack Mitchell. I own several waste management companies, so folks around here call me the Garbage King. I was once married to Emma Parker. She kept her maiden name because she was a lawyer and needed it for her career. Honestly, she seemed to live her entire life as if it were just a professional endeavor, as she never used anything other than her maiden name in any social setting. Emma was fine with my waste management job back when I was footing the bill for her pricey law school tuition. After spending years working as a paralegal, she realized she was just as sharp as the lawyer she worked for. So she decided to go to law school. Even though I run several successful businesses and make more money than many of the esteemed lawyers she rubbed shoulders with, Emma began to look down on me shortly after landing a job at a law firm. When the late nights, reduced intimacy, and growing disrespect reached a peak over several weeks, I started to suspect she was having an affair. Since she seemed to think of herself as a goddess who wouldn't mingle with common folk, I figured she was seeing one of her lawyer colleagues. I quickly decided I needed undeniable proof, something that would hold up in court. If I had just filed for divorce, she would have taken half of my business and a significant chunk of my wealth. But if I could prove she was unfaithful with one of her lawyer friends, I might even be able to sue her firm. It'd likely pay a lot to avoid the scandal and potential loss of clients, possibly enough to cover what I'd lose in the divorce. Maybe my logic was flawed, but that's what I was thinking at the time, and I based my actions on that. Emma's office holds an annual Christmas party every year, and she always invites me. I've always turned her down until this year. When I accepted, she was shocked and immediately started coming up with reasons for me to stay home. There's no one there for you to talk to, just a bunch of lawyers bragging about their billing hours. Do you really want to listen to that all night? I don't mind as long as I'm with you, I said. As long as I can keep an eye on you and figure out who you're cheating with. I thought almost every day before the party, Emma would mention another excuse I could use to back out. I didn't take the bait. I kept telling her I was looking forward to it. Even on the night of the party, as she was getting ready, she made one last "I hate to see you have a miserable time. Are you sure you want to go?" "Yes, dear." I knew her problem wasn't with my looks. People have told me I'm quite handsome. I stay in good shape. I was wearing an Armani suit. I wasn't a slob. I just worked with garbage. She didn't appreciate it when I pointed out that she dealt with garbage too, in a different way. We arrived at the party with the second wave of guests aiming to be fashionably late. Most tables were already taken, but we found one near the dance floor where only one other couple had settled. We took our seats, and I offered to get drinks for us. My first confrontation of the night happened while I was waiting in line for our beverages. A man who looked like one of the firm's lawyers approached me and said, "I don't believe I've met you before. Who are you here with?" "I'm here with my wife, Emma Parker Mitchell." "Emma?" I didn't think she was still married. "Yep, we've been happily married for 8 years now. Actually, we've been married for over 10. He looked taken aback for a moment, then started laughing, thinking I was making a joke. It just proved to me that sometimes the truth is funnier than fiction. More than once I heard people refer to me as the Garbage King, usually followed by snide laughter. It didn't really bother me. I had always expected to be treated like this by these snobs. To them I was lower class, almost gutter-level scum. I watched Emma as she mingled with various lawyers, paralegals, secretaries, and their spouses or dates for the evening at our table. She spoke politely with the others during dinner. When the dancing began, I decided to give it a shot and asked Emma to dance. She looked like she could barely stand to be seen with me, but I didn't care. I tried to take charge during the slow dances, but soon enough, other men started cutting in. She then accepted several invitations from her lawyer friends for both fast and slow dances. I gave up and just sat back to watch her more closely. About an hour into the dancing, a middle-aged, distinguished-looking man approached our table. He only had eyes for Emma. Unlike most others, he didn't ask my permission. He was claiming her, not merely asking her to dance. Emma's face lit up when she saw him. She eagerly accepted and stood up without even glancing at me for approval. I thought I might have found the one. My focus was entirely on them as I watched them dance a slow dance. Her body language fed my suspicions, but nothing was overt enough to take a damning picture. So was my gut feeling proof of their affair? No. Fortunately, I had another source of information, an unusual one. I never told Emma that I had been recruited by the CIA out of college. It turned out I had a highly accurate skill in reading lips. I completed several successful covert missions and was being trained to read lips in a Middle Eastern language. My time in the CIA, however, was cut short when a whistleblower exposed me and everyone else in my section. Not interested in a desk job, I left the agency. So there I was sitting back and watching Emma dance with this man, my mind racing through all the skills I had picked up in the CIA. I focused on their lips, trying to pick up any incriminating conversation. They were deep in conversation, and while I couldn't catch everything, I could see enough to fuel my suspicions even more. It seemed like I was on the right track, but I needed more concrete proof. I got up and positioned myself where I could see Emma talking to her dance partner. From most angles, I couldn't see his face, but this is what I managed to Emma. Did you get the roof for tonight? Room 322. Emma, did you put it in? Yes. I just put in his drink a few minutes ago. It shouldn't take. I can't believe you planned for us to make love in the same room my husband is sleeping in. That is so naughty and dangerous. Him? You love the thrill. Are you sure he won't wake up too soon? Him? Don't worry about me. If I promised you. I quickly spilled the rest of the tampered drink on myself and the table, excused myself, and hurried toward the restrooms. I passed them and headed straight for the exit. I was hoping I hadn't ingested enough of the drug to be affected yet, or that it wasn't a strong dose. Unfortunately, I was wrong on both counts. Beeping monitors, bright lights, and the smell of alcohol were my welcome back to consciousness. Apparently, I had a car accident after falling asleep at the wheel while driving home from the party. As I looked around, I saw a nurse. I was about to ask her a question when Emma walked into the room. I immediately sat up and yelled, "Get that woman out of here." Emma ran out of the room. Once she was gone, I kept "She's the one who almost got me killed. I want to talk to a policeman now." The nurse tried to calm me down. The medical staff assumed I was having some kind of psychotic episode. I calmed myself and said, "I'll explain this in simple terms. I will sue you personally in the hospital if you don't get a policeman here in the next 15 minutes. I've been drugged. Do a tox screen for liquid Badderall and other knockout drugs. I think my wife and her lover tried to kill me. I exaggerated what I knew, but it worked. Within 15 minutes, a police officer was taking my statement. I told him I had overheard my wife and her lover talking about drugging me and dumping my body somewhere so they could have sex. I didn't mention that I had read their conversation from their lips. I figured drugging and attempted kidnapping would get the police moving. They told me I needed to come to the station after being discharged to file a formal complaint. I said I would unless I got kidnapped or killed. When I left the hospital, the officer didn't seem particularly worried about my safety. While waiting to be discharged, a nurse came in to give me the toxicology report results. I had been heavily drugged. Based on the amount of drugs in my system, if I had drunk the entire glass, it would likely have killed me. The hospital staff had already reported this to the police. I heard the term attempted murder for the first time. Before long, there was a policeman stationed outside my door. For the first time, there was a policeman stationed outside my door. And the second officer who interviewed me was much more serious in her questioning. When I was discharged the next day, I headed home where a police car was regularly passing by. Despite this, I didn't feel in danger. Emma wasn't at home, but all her belongings were still there. I learned that she had been arrested at our house earlier. She and her lover had come to convince me not to inform the law firm about their planned rendezvous at the hotel. They thought that was the only crime they had committed. However, both Emma and Mark were charged with attempted murder. I imagine Emma must have collapsed when she heard the charge as the police cuffed her. Naturally, both lawyers refused to speak without their own legal representation. The district attorney wanted to try Emma and Mark separately. He hoped that if Emma saw she was going to be convicted, she would testify against Mark, her lover, and a junior partner at the firm. However, the DA's plan didn't work out. The cases were too intertwined, so they would be tried together. Emma tried to contact me before the trial. She left messages claiming she was innocent of trying to kill me. Interestingly, she didn't think cheating on me warranted an apology. I ignored her messages. I quickly withdrew all the money from our joint accounts and severed all other financial ties she had with me. Her father had to pay her lawyer until I was eventually forced to return her half of the funds. During the trial, the toxicology report of the drugs found in my system was the key evidence. A forensic chemist and expert in poisonings, knockout drugs, and date rape drugs testified the scientific name of the drug I had been given and the danger I would have faced if I had consumed the entire drink. I was the star witness. The defense focused on the accuracy of my lip reading skills, questioning how I could be so certain of what I saw. While most lip readers performed just above 50% accuracy, several CIA staff members testified to my proficiency being well above average. I even demonstrated my skills in court. Next, the defense attorney tried to present an alternative theory, claiming that I had drugged myself to frame my wife and her lover for attempted murder. If successful, this plan would ensure I got all the assets in the divorce, plus a hefty settlement from a lawsuit against the law firm. In reality, I wished I could have been that cunning. The judge was not impressed with my blunt expression of how stupid I found the defense attorney's claim. When it was the defense's turn, neither Emma nor Mark testified. They brought in another forensic chemist who testified that the drug likely wouldn't have been lethal. They also had a sign language expert testify on the general inaccuracies of lip reading. I particularly enjoyed it. When my lawyer asked him if some lip readers were more accurate than others, he responded with a yes. Then he was asked if he had ever observed me to gauge my accuracy, and he admitted he hadn't. The only other witness was Sergeant H.H. Haskins, a police officer who had interviewed the people at our table during the party. He testified that no one at the table had reported seeing my wife tampering with my drink. With that, the defense rested. Their argument boiled down to no one saw Mark give Emma any substance. No one saw Emma put anything in my drink, and there was no evidence to suggest I hadn't drugged myself. Just as the police officer finished testifying, an elderly woman in the gallery repeatedly tried to get the district attorney's attention. Her persistence caused a disruption, prompting the DA to send an assistant to find out what was troubling her. The assistant returned hastily and announced, "We need a recess." The DA successfully requested a 15-minute break while the DA went to speak with the woman. I glanced over at Emma and saw a look of horror cross her face. Upon seeing the woman, she immediately engaged in a tense conversation with her lawyer. After the recess, the district attorney requested permission for a rebuttal witness to testify. When asked whose testimony was being rebutted, the police officer, H. Haskins, Emma's lawyer, urged him to speak. "Your Honor, I request another recess, during which time my client will change her plea." Mark's lawyer reacted strongly. With the word crazy tossed around several times during their discussion, Emma and her lawyer agreed to plead guilty and accept a 3 to 5 year sentence in exchange for testifying against Mark. The DA agreed to the deal. The elderly woman had informed the DA that the police officer had asked her if she had witnessed Emma adding knockout powder to my drink. Since he hadn't specifically asked if Emma had put anything in my drink, she answered no to the knockout drug question. No further questions were asked. The woman recalled seeing Emma put something into my drink. Emma had claimed it was medicine to alleviate the hangover I supposedly always got from drinking too much. The woman dismissed the idea of knockout drugs because she believed it was hangover medicine. It took several more months for Emma's guilty plea and sentencing to be finalized. Mark received a new trial where Emma became the key witness. She detailed how Mark pursued her and their affair began. She swore that her intention was only to deceive me and that Mark was responsible for choosing the drug and its dosage. In response, Mark argued that he had only followed Emma's instructions and that she knowingly administered an excessive amount of the drug, fully aware of its potentially deadly effects. Mark's attorney then proposed a new Emma had manipulated and planned from the start to frame Mark and cause harm to me. This would rid her of a husband whose inheritance she stood to gain and eliminate a lover whose junior partnership she coveted. My car accident disrupted her plans. Mark wept at the thought that he might have been capable of harming someone. Ultimately, the jury believed Emma's version over Mark's. He was convicted and sentenced to 1,015 years in prison. I was allowed to testify at Mark's sentencing hearing. Tears welled in my eyes as I spoke. I shouldn't be here today. I should be buried in Riverside Cemetery instead of sitting in this padded chair. My wife's lover should be standing beside my grave, celebrating their successful disposal of the garbage man. She should have inherited a fortune. She should be out spending my money with her lover and accomplice. Don't be fooled. Neither of them is remorseful that I nearly died. They're upset that I survived and they got caught. It was my ability in lip reading that saved my life. I had already consumed about a quarter of the drink my wife had spiked with drugs supplied by her lover when I discovered it had been tampered with. The amount I did ingest was enough to knock me out and send my car crashing into some bushes. If I had hit the nearby tree, I would likely be dead. Tests on the drugs in my system confirmed that if I had finished the drink, I would not have survived, as my wife and her lover indulged themselves in the same room where I was dying. They both claimed they only intended to drug and deceive me. They argue she mistakenly administered a potentially lethal dose of drugs. Even if that were true, do they get to simply say oops and receive a slap on the wrist? I don't think so, but perhaps my opinion doesn't matter. You see, I was supposed to be dead. As mentioned, Mark received 10, 15 years, and Emma received 3 to 5. As they escorted Emma out of the courtroom after Mark's sentence was announced, she shouted an apology to me. I retorted, "Read my lips. I don't care." Epilogue: the divorce proceedings with Emma were straightforward. Given her incarceration and lack of contestation, I believe she was genuinely ashamed of her actions and the danger she put me in. Unintentionally, I achieved what the defense attorney claimed, acquiring all the assets from my marriage. With negotiations involving the law firm and settlements for Mark's lawsuits. I was not only wealthy before, but even wealthier now. Given my occupation in waste management, you could say I'm truly filthy rich. What amazed me was the number of women who, in the months following the trial, sought to fill the now vacant position of garbage queen. Unsurprisingly, none of the candidates were female lawyers.